So the first thing you're going to do is open up a new document in Photoshop so that it resembles an A4 piece of paper, and usually you'll want it to be about 1200 by 800 and normally a resolution of 300. And once this is done, then I'm going to click on my background layer and go to brightness and contrast over here and get the shade that I want, because I don't want my contents page to look too white, as that's not one of the conventions that I discovered from my research. And keeping the brightness at 0, I'm taking the contrast down to about -28. After this, using the horizontal text tool, I'm going to choose the font CGF Locust Resistance, as this was the font used for Onyx, the masthead of my magazine, and having chosen the dark blue colour on the left hand side toolbar, my contents heading should appear like this. Now, as you can see with the effects FX button at the bottom here, this allows me to add a drop shadow to my title. Once I've done this, I'm then going to right click on the layer and duplicate it to give me two titles which are identical. Next, I'm using the Command T tool to transform this text, and I rotated it 180 degrees and then dropped the opacity of this second title to about 63%. With the title looking like this so far, I then decided to work on my magazine identity, and using the same font as my masthead and contents title, I typed out Onyx in a bright red font colour, which contrasted to the black box that I placed it in, using the rounded text tool, which is over here on the left hand side. With an impact font in size 12 and in white, I typed monthly and placed this underneath the masthead. I ended up with a scheme of black, white and red, all colours which were predominantly used on my front page, and therefore ended up creating an effective house style. Then, using the Maraid Pro font, I placed the volume and issue number of the magazine right underneath the title, and I left justified it to look like this. Once these features of my contents page were done, I used the rectangle tool and chose a red colour on Colour Picker to create a red box for my subscription information to go in. In the same impact font as before, I typed this text inside, but then with the CGF Locust Resistance font, I pasted my magazine masthead in a different colour into the red box. After adding some more information about the subscription and making key parts bolder colours, all that was needed was a page reference. I used the rounded rectangle tool to draw a grey box and then added the stroke effect to produce a white line around the outside, making it stand out more. The font that I used for the page 4 text was Maraid Pro. Now it was time to file and open my first image. I searched for my final front page in my documents and inserted this onto my contents page. Using Command and T, I tilted it slightly and swapped the layers so that it appeared behind the subscription box. For further effect, I added a black stroke effect onto this image to make it stand out. By selecting an inner shadow to be shown on the red box and using the line tool to draw 3 identical black lines, my subscription box was ready and should now look like this. Due to the need to have full images across my whole product, with the artist presented in different ways, I now needed to go to File and Open to drop in my second image of the artist in a different attire. Using the Quick Selection tool, I cropped out the part of the image that I wanted and was able to move it. By going to Image and Image Rotation, I was then able to flip the entire canvas horizontally so that my artist appeared the other way round. I wanted this to happen because of the previous planning and layout I had done of my contents page, as I knew this was a better way to fit on the information that I needed. Now I could simply drop the image into my contents page like so. However, in order to create some kind of shadow effect to make the image look less 2D and more three-dimensional, I used the brush tool, selecting a 21 pixel very soft brush to draw around the outside layer of the image against the artist's body. The results looked like a shadow had been created in the original photograph. Now for the text, I used Scorched Earth for the main headings on the page and had already decided there were to be 3. Features, lifestyle and currently in R&B headings, which all appeared like this. Now for each subheading I used a bolder impact font in capitals to highlight the topic and lowercase Maraid Pro font for the more detailed information. I then made the page numbers down the side the same red colour as these headings, and repeated these exact steps for all the other subheadings. To maintain a magazine identity, I needed some sort of website at the bottom, so I used black CGF locus resistance font for this and minimised the size. In addition, I used the line tool to create these two grey lines separating the columns on the page, so a real layout could be identified. Then I used the rectangle tool to create another black box in the centre of the page, as well as 4 other mini rectangles in blue to act as a border and increase the number of design elements I had incorporated. I used the same CGF font to maintain a house style to write what is inside every issue, as well as again the Scorched Earth font to write up many of the details, and with the addition of page numbers ended up with this. Now for my third image, I imported a previously created album mock-up for the so-called band Treason. When inserted onto my page, I added a drop shadow effect to make it more 3D and transform the shape to fit around my text. As this was a free download, I used a regular colleged font for this text, and to make it more eye-catching, added a red oval using the circle shape tool and a pull quote reviewing the album itself. The next step was to insert my fourth and final image, so I quick selected from the original image and decreased the size to fit it in the top right hand corner of my contents page, and so this is what it should look like so far. Because by looking at the page from bird's eye view, I thought the entire white background drained out the rest of the content and also looked a bit simple, I used the rectangle tool again to create 2 boxes of different shades of grey to add some depth of colour to the page. In addition to this, I thought what I also lacked was design elements and some page furniture. So the first step I took was going to the custom shape tool and selecting a shape of my choice from the drop down box available, from which I chose a bold yellow arrow to start with, and created a second white box with a grey stroke effect to put the page number of the actual contents inside. I used the same font as the rest of the numbers to keep the house style going, and then returned to the shapes available and decided to jazz up some other parts of my contents page. In the inside every issue box, I added a red target icon and aligned it to look more aesthetically pleasing. And next to one of my main headings, I added a play button because this part of my contents page was all to do with songs, music, entertainment currently happening in my genre of music. Thirdly, I knew that I had to label the image of my main artist and my second artist with page references, so I included a scroll-shaped box and oval shape in which I then placed yellow page numbers to make them stand out as the main features. To highlight my main cover story even more, I used the vertical text type tool and Scorched Earth font in blue to write cover story like this, and next drew out a large yellow box, the same yellow as the text before, and added a drop shadow effect to this as well. As there was one more quite large gap of space at the top of my page, I drew another oval, this time red, and decided to add something extra here. With a black stroke effect over the shape, I made it perfect size and filled the gap. With the right hand column the only place left to fill, from my research I knew that many music magazines, specifically Hip Hop Weekly, had the list of editors and columnists down the right hand side, which is exactly what I did, as this made it look quite professional. To separate the names of the different workers, I put thin black lines of different thicknesses between them. I then named my second artist and wrote about a competition for an iPhone 5S in the red circle on my page, importing an image of an iPhone and quick selecting it to scale, as well as an image of a silver CD, and placing this slap bang in the centre of my vertical cover story heading. The only thing I had left to do therefore was to write in that yellow box, where I preserved the space to talk about online exclusives, and in red highlighted the web address of my magazine to entice the reader to visit it, due to the fact that print feeds into online and online feeds into print content. So having this on my contents page would do me some favours. Once this was done, I had then constructed my contents page, and this is the end result. If you work to the same plan, a very similar result should be produced. Thank you for listening to how I constructed my contents page.